For more than 30 years now, there's been this wild pop culture mystery that just won't go away. You've heard it, right? The idea that The Simpsons can somehow predict the future. It's uncanny. From politics to massive business deals, the show just has this bizarre knack for nailing things years, sometimes even decades before they happen. So, what's the deal? Are the writers just psychic, or is something way more interesting going on behind the scenes? Let's dive in.
Okay, this one right here, this is the big one. The one that really kicked the whole obsession into high gear. In an episode from way back in 2000, President Lisa Simpson casually mentions she inherited a budget crunch from President Trump. At the time, it was just a funny throwaway line about a celebrity president. And then, 16 years later, it actually happened. The image was so similar, it sparked this global fascination with the show's prophecies.
And believe me, it was not a one-off thing. Just look at this. 2 years before the Trump joke, back in 1998, the show had this quick little sight gag. It's a shot of the 20th Century Fox sign, the studio that makes the show, and underneath it says, a division of Walt Disney Co. It was a totally absurd joke at the time. But then, fast forward to 2019, and Disney buys Fox for over $71 billion. Joke's on us, I guess.
I mean, the list is just insane. The show had Lady Gaga flying through the air at a Super Bowl halftime show 5 years before she did it in real life. Homer scribbled an equation on a chalkboard that came ridiculously close to the mass of the Higgs boson particle, a full 14 years before scientists discovered it. They even predicted a Nobel Prize winner, a shocking U.S. Olympic gold in curling, and the massive FIFA corruption scandal. It's just a lot. The sheer volume is staggering.
So this all leads us to the billion-dollar question, right? How on earth are they doing this? Are the writers in Springfield some secret group of time travelers? Are they using a crystal ball? Or is there another explanation?
Well, the truth is, it's a little more logical, but honestly, it's no less fascinating. So let's start peeling back the layers on this thing with some of the more simple, straightforward explanations.
First off, let's just talk about the law of large numbers. The Simpsons has aired over 750 episodes. That's more than 35 years of jokes, gags, parodies, and storylines. When you throw that many ideas at the wall, some of them are just bound to stick, right? It's kind of like firing a shotgun full of predictions at a giant barn. You're going to hit it eventually, just by pure chance.
But there's also a little trick our brains play on us. It's called confirmation bias. We, as a culture, collectively remember the dozen or so jokes that landed with a shocking thud of reality. But we completely forget the tens of thousands of other jokes that were just, jokes. It makes the hits seem so much more prophetic than they really are.
And of course, we've got to talk about the fakes. A lot of the so-called predictions you see getting passed around online are just plain wrong. Images get photoshopped, people misremember scenes, and sometimes, like that viral image of Mr. Burns after the Fukushima disaster, it's not even from the show. So yeah, a little bit of healthy skepticism definitely goes a long way here.
So all that brings us to the real secret sauce in the writer's room. See, they're not actually trying to predict the future. Their genius isn't in looking forward. It's in being incredibly sharp and hilarious observers of the present. They take what's happening right now and just stretch it to its most absurd, logical conclusion. Okay, take the so-called pandemic prediction. In 1993, there was an episode with the Osaka flu. A lot of people pointed to that as predicting COVID-19, but one of the writers, Bill Oakley, has been really clear about it. The whole plot was a direct satire of things that had already happened, specifically the Hong Kong flu pandemic back in 1968. History repeats itself, and so does good satire.
Oh, and here's another perfect one. People say the show predicted the iPhone's annoying autocorrect. Nope. That joke from 1994 where Beat Up Martin becomes Eat Up Martha, that was a topical joke about a real product that existed right then, the Apple Newton. It was this early digital assistant that was famous for having absolutely terrible handwriting recognition. The writers just saw it and made a great joke.
And you see this pattern over and over. That 2014 episode about FIFA corruption wasn't some prophecy. It was a commentary on the corruption rumors that had been swirling around that organization for years. And the President Trump gag? That came right after he made a very real, though not very successful bid to run for president. The writers are just paying really, really close attention.
In fact, one of the writers came up with a great name for this whole philosophy, Simpsons Razor. You know Occam's razor, where the simplest explanation is probably the right one? Well, Simpsons Razor suggests that the dumbest possible outcome is often the most likely.
The writers make fun of society's flaws by exaggerating them, and sometimes, well, reality just decides to catch up.
Okay, so this is where we get into an even deeper, more fascinating level of what's happening. The show's genius isn't just about making timely jokes. It's about understanding which way the river of society is flowing and then just playing around in the realm of what's possible.
So if it's not magic, are they just making some incredibly educated guesses? Well, yeah, kind of. But it's more specific and creative than that. They're not just guessing randomly. They operate in a very specific zone that's just a little bit beyond our current reality.
There's this great concept called the adjacent possible. Think of it like this. It's the space of all the things that could happen next, based on everything that exists right now. Like great science fiction writers, the Simpsons team looks at current trends, technologies, and social weirdness and asks, okay, what's the next logical or, absurd step? They make these creative, educated leaps based on what's already there.
And sometimes, this creates this incredible feedback loop. Get this, in 1999, the writers read a scientific article about grafting a tobacco plant onto a tomato root. So they had Homer invent the tomaco, this super addictive nicotine-laced tomato. Years later, a fan of the show got inspired by that episode and actually created a real-life tomaco. It's this perfect cycle of science inspiring fiction and then fiction inspiring reality. Wild, right?
So when you zoom out from all these specific examples, you start to see that The Simpsons' real power isn't about predicting the future. It's about shaping how we see the present. It's less of a crystal ball and more of a funhouse mirror reflecting our own weird world back at us.
A former showrunner, Mike Reiss, really nailed the show's core thesis. He said, the overarching point is that the media is stupid and manipulative, and all big institutions are corrupt and evil. That cynical, satirical worldview is baked into the show's DNA. And by assuming that institutions will fail and people will take the dumbest path, well, they ironically end up being right an awful lot.
And that's really the big takeaway here. You could argue that The Simpsons has become one of America's biggest media literacy programs. By making fun of everything from political ads to news reports, it's been teaching generations of viewers how to see through the nonsense, recognize patterns, and question the world around them.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe it's not, are The Simpsons predicting the future? Maybe the real question is our reality just becoming so absurd that it's starting to look exactly like a cartoon written by a bunch of brilliant comedy writers? And honestly, that might be the scariest prediction of them all.